Hello, internet of people. I didn't record a video last night because I was very tired for, I think, quite good reasons. My dad came up to visit. He drove up from Dublin, and so he was here for a few hours. And while it was great to see him, and we chatted and watched a video, it was still a few hours more than I'm used to. So, and after that, I watched the live stream of the Palfest Alternative Eurovision from the National Stadium in Dublin, which was superb. It was a fantastic show, really amazing artists, and really good to see messages from artists in Palestine, artists who are exiled from Palestine, and artists that support the Palestinian right to, well, human rights and self-determination. Um, so that again was, I think, a good use of my time, but because of the terrible internet signal here, and because my laptop that I was using to watch it is quite old and slow, it meant that I kept on losing the stream and having to refresh and start again, and then, cycle through all of the useless information. I didn't want people's comments. I was watching the show, but I kept on having to hide all the comments, and then of course when the website's trying to update that in the background, it's taking up data and so on. So that kind of wore me out, I think, and yeah, I was too tired to make a video by the time I got myself to bed. Today I was very tired and just slept for most of the day. I still have a bit of physical tiredness just from using the wheelchair that bit more. Although when I'm using the wheelchair, I really do feel much more independent and I feel more capable. Just things like pottering around the kitchen, putting the dishwasher on, putting stuff away in the fridge, all of those things that are very simple, straightforward, but are bloody exhausting when you're trying to manage with crutches and when supporting your own body weight is an issue. So yeah, being able to just kind of spin around in the chair and do that is, yeah, it's a good feeling. And really reminds me of the good feeling of movement and freedom of movement that I get when dancing in a chair as well. So I'm hoping I can get back to that this summer, hoping that there's a project in early August that I can participate in my inclusive dance company that works locally. By my company, I didn't set it up, but no, I'm a member of it. So yeah, what else was I thinking? Yeah, I did my online shopping and then came up against an insurmountable barrier to accessibility that has been there on the shopping app since I first used it. I emailed the tech support again. I have done on several occasions in the past, and gave very specific details of what the issues are. I think particularly if you're developing apps that are going to be used on an iPhone, which is what I use, checking accessibility should be really simple because Apple has built in pretty high standard accessibility software of all kinds, but the one that I most depend on being VoiceOver, the screen reader. So if you're developing an app for an iPhone and you're testing it for usability on an iPhone, it's so easy. Just go and switch on VoiceOver and then see if it still works, see if you can do everything. It, it's really not rocket science. And yet, just because people are so unaware of it, it doesn't happen. And then it's not prioritised, it's not incentivised, And so it's down to the end users like me who are trying to depend on these things for daily living activities like doing our grocery shopping. And we're having to just butt up against these barriers again and again and again, having to explain over and over again in tremendous detail what the issue is to people who've never even considered it before. And that is a lot of emotional labour, and it's another spoon thief. So, yeah, and that's, on top of the usual thing where a number of times a day on Twitter I'm using the hashtag real text for real access because somebody has used an image either which is the entire focus of their message or which contains text that screen readers can't access. Um, there are people on Twitter who have taken well to my requests and tend to follow them up very quickly, but they're not always the original posters. Um, and, again, it sort of very much feels like I'm the only one. I know I'm not the only one, but it feels like I'm the only person asking for this over and over again. And by the way, web accessibility is guaranteed under the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So if you are a citizen of a country that has signed up to that, with or without the so-called optional protocol, there is a duty for any individual, business or state organisation within that country to provide actually accessible digital information. Yeah, I was very hand shaky when I woke up from my long sleep today. Ended up spilling some tea on myself. Ended up knocking the straw out of my cup. And yeah, that happens when I get too tired or when I'm woken up from a deep sleep. I'm just incredibly shaky, and I found like eating my dinner was quite difficult, even with the extra grips that I have on my cutlery. I was still just finding it really hard to manipulate anything and get the food from the plate into my mouth. Yeah, the other thing then today was trying to find out about the election candidates. I made my choice for the local elections, partly because there are so few good candidates. I only voted 1, 2, 3 on that out of 12 candidates. The European election, though, there's a bigger variety of candidates, and while some of those candidates have put their ideas out there online or they've answered questions from RTE or the Journal or other media sources that give an insight into their positions and policies, there are still several that just there's no information on them out there whatsoever, and I really have to get these things delivered tomorrow in order for the votes to be counted. So I'm afraid candidates that have failed to put information out there, I can't vote for you. And that makes me sad because I like to know as much as I can about all the candidates, give everybody a fair hearing, but I can't do that if the information isn't out there, and particularly with an EU constituency which consists of, half the counties of Ireland. If you're based over in Louth or Meath, I may never have come across you. If you're based in Galway, you may have no experience of rural life in Leitrim. It's a pretty vast constituency, and it's difficult to know who people are and what they represent. So yeah, I'm just going to have to vote based on the people that I have found information on, and I think there are some really good candidates. So yeah, I'm going to finish that off now before I go to bed. So that's my update for days 13 and 14. I will do my best to ring Physical and Sensory Disability Services in the morning because they said they would review after 2 weeks, and that is tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned. They are reviewing me tomorrow and any later than that, and they are reneging on their most recent stated aim. That's aside from the fact that, you know, they never followed up on the earlier review, which they said they would do in the middle of last week, and then they all left the office and didn't follow that up. So, and I still haven't found out when my surgery follow-up is either. Again, can't get anyone to answer the phones. And of course there's going to be more industrial action, this time from all the support staff at the hospital, who are, you know, the people who actually enable a hospital to run, and need to be treated fairly by the government who employs them. So yeah, while I'm completely behind the industrial action, as I was completely behind the nurses and midwives strike earlier in the year, this message to Simon Harris, this is going to, you know, put more people's health at risk because you are unable to treat union members as human beings with a right to living wage, quality of life, and decent working conditions. So, yeah, getting quite political in this last week before local and European elections. But also because, you know, you can't campaign for a better life for yourself without being conscious of how that impacts other people. And that's politics, with a small p. It's participative democracy. Okay, I think I should give my voice a rest now, and then give the rest of me a rest in a little while. So good night out there, internet, wherever you are.